Still some of the best cinematography ever in all of Hollywood, in the history of Hollywood. It's just absolutely wild and insane. I recognize that for whatever reason, YouTube notifications didn't go out. I know that because my own husband didn't get a notification. So I don't know what that's about, but hopefully everybody gets the actual "we're live now" notification. He got his, so hopefully everybody else got theirs. Cal G, what's going on? Yes, we're back. What is good, everybody? Lady G, Sultan, what's going on? Yes, we are back. Nostalgic Nirvana. I have missed this so much. I mean, words can't even describe how much I have missed these shows, and just talking about incredible, awesome film, music, books. We mostly do movies, but we've covered all kinds of shows. I am from up north, so when I say show, that covers everything from live theater to movies to television shows to plays to all over the place. So we cover it all, and we've covered mostly movies, but we've had a few head-to-heads. I know we did Sly Stallone versus Arnie back in their heyday one, so we're gonna have a lot of fun with Nostalgic Nirvana moving forward. I love doing these, and I absolutely love the energy that the chat brings. It brings me so much joy, and I just love talking about this stuff. I cannot wait to absolutely just dig in and break down this fantastic movie that really, honestly, truly holds a very special place near and dear to my heart, and I know many other people's hearts. I would have to say, my favorites, it's so close between Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Last Crusade. They're so close, but it's just, I go back and forth because I'm like, oh, this, but no, that. But I have to say, I think Crusade edges it out for me over Raiders, but they're both just phenomenal films. And Temple of Doom is growing on me. I will say that, especially after Disney Jones came out. Crystal Skull was just, there were some bumps along the way, but I was really engaged until like the very end, and I couldn't. I was like, really, truly, that's the route. You had all these opportunities, and you could have done all of these different things, and that's how you went about it. So that's one reason I like that far better than Dial of Destiny. Those two I just do not, outside of Indy and Marion getting married, I hold zero canon from either of those movies. I just sort of reject them. They don't exist. There's only 3 Indiana Jones films. And from my favorite to least favorite, and they're all really close, but it's got to be, so Crusade, Raiders, Temple would be how I would stack those up. I'm curious, though, chat, which one is your favorite one? And it's okay. You can be perfectly honest. I'm not asking like which one is better than the other. I'm just asking like which one is your favorite. Because it's really, there's, when we used to compare things that had what is that word? Oh yeah, quality and standards, and I don't know, just it was objectively good. We had objective measures that we could rate this stuff by. It, you could compare things to each other. But now it just seems, uh, I don't know. It's like we're trying to find the corn kernel in the turd is sort of where we've arrived at. Rather than comparing gold to gold or platinum to platinum, we're looking at turds and we're trying to find like the tiny little nugget that isn't complete stunk in it. You know what I mean? Does the skull count? No. Except for like the wedding scene at the very end. I'm gonna take that with me forever. And they didn't get divorced at all. Um, that's what I'm gonna do. Mystic Girl, what's going on? Hello, hello. Um, Last Crusade, because of the Immortal Crusader, I found it interesting. Yes. Yes. Very much so. I love the Immortal Crusader. He is incredibly intriguing. And to live that long, you must truly, like, not beg for death, but you must be very ready to go at that point. It has to be. Mystic Girl, I completely understand. I definitely, 2 has grown on me after the nonsense trash that Disney has crapped out. But when you compare it to, so if you take just the actual 3 Indiana Jones films and you have Temple and you've got Raiders, Temple, and Crusade, I mean, Temple cannot hold a candle to Raiders or Crusade. It can't. It firmly comes in third. It's it's an honorable third, but it definitely comes in third. Raiders and Crusade, they battle back and forth for first place, especially for me. But I've seen people go back and forth because they'll be like, well, in Raiders, X, Y, and Z, and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, yeah, that's so true. And I'm like, but in Crusade, and then of course, like you cannot discount Sean Connery and Harrison Ford's chemistry in Crusade. It's just, I mean, it's freaking that is movie magic on the screen right there when we're talking Crusade. Like there's so much to love. It's so they got several things wrong, obviously. I mean, it's a fantasy action film. You could throw sci-fi in there, but there's not really any science fiction. It's so you have I even struggle to call it fantasy because there isn't like a magic system. This is more of like a historical religious action film, and it's so fantastic to watch. And so when you watch Crusade and you understand that the the idea behind all of the chalices that are there, I mean, the fact that out of those hundreds, only one represents life, that is truly indicative of so many things in life today. Really anything, but when we look at Hollywood, for example, I mean, they don't make movies like this anymore. They do not make, you can't find a Raiders if you tried, if you begged. I mean, I challenge anyone to tell me a movie that has come out in the last 7 years that is even close to the writing, the artistry, the casting, anything. Like we could compare it to anything, the cinematography, the plot, whatever you want it to be. We we could compare them one to one. In the last 7 years, I don't think there's a single film that can hold a flicker of a flame to Raiders. I mean, it's so fantastically cast, and we don't get that sense of adventure and mystery and mystique and this belief and concept that there is something greater out there than ourselves. Like it just doesn't happen anymore. Everybody writes from their self-insertion. That is the current problem that we are facing. The issue that we are having is that these writers think that they should be writing about themselves because they are the most interesting thing. And it's not true. And so when you go back and you watch Raiders, like the scene, if you watch the scene inside of the map room, right? And it that when it lights up, it's truly astounding what they were able to do with practical and special effects, because you have to remember a lot of Indiana Jones, especially Raiders, a lot of it is practical, and we just don't see that level used hardly ever anymore. It's just simply not done. And I think, oh gosh, I think one of the hardest things to admit is that we let it happen. We let the standards slip. We didn't hold Hollywood to the standard that we wanted from them. And it's, oh, benefit of the doubt, it yeah, they'll figure it out. These are just new and they're not. It isn't. And we found that out the hard way. And so to be able to have this opportunity, like the independent sphere is exploding, and I am absolutely just blown away by what's coming out of it. But this is honestly, Raiders and Crusade are, honest to God, peak Hollywood. Absolute peak Hollywood. Uh there is no doubt about it. And if we can get back to this, if Hollywood can get back to the imagination, the passion, the storytelling of Raiders and Crusade and even Temple, oh my gosh, it billions, hand over fist, they'd be making money. Which artifact would you go after, Lady G? Holy Grail or Ark? Well, considering that, so if we're playing by the rules of the Indiana Jones universe, uh, I would have to carry the Ark on my back with at least 3 other people, and I could never look at it, which is it's a high temptation level, right? Because you want to look, you want to see, because inside of for those that don't know, inside of the Ark of the Covenant are the pieces of the 10 Commandments, right? So it's literally the word and power of God. Okay, so you have the pieces of the 10 Commandments inside the Ark of the Covenant, and I do not know if I could resist the temptation to look. I don't think I could, but I would be free to go wherever I wanted. Now, if I chose the Grail, remember, it can't pass the seal. So if I chose the Holy Grail, I would be taking the place of the knight, right? The Templar knight. So, which means I could never leave, but I would literally have the cup of Christ from the Last Supper. So if we're playing by the rules of the universe, I've got temptation to look but freedom to move about, versus no temptation to look and I would be able to utilize the Holy Grail, but I could never leave. So if I had to pick one, see, honestly though, I would probably just like dig a big hole and stick the Ark of the Covenant like down in the ground so that nobody could like steal it and try to use it to overthrow the world. I think I think I'm going to go Holy Grail. I think I'm going to say the Holy Grail, because then I could relieve the Templar Knight of I could relieve the Templar Knight of his duty and his suffering, and I could take up that duty for him, and hopefully by doing so he would be able to find peace, right? So I think that's the route that I would go, because honestly, I know myself too well. At some point I would be I don't know that I would cave to temptation and look, but I would definitely, it would be a battle every single day. You know what I mean? It would be a battle every single day to one to not use the power of the Ark to try and, because that's the other thing too, right? The Ark of the Covenant, you literally have the power to rewrite the world. So if you read the Bible, so the army that carries the Ark of the Covenant upon its back is undefeatable, right? It can raise the dead, it can slaughter, so it'll wipe out the enemies, it can raise them from the dead, allegedly. And again, if we go inside of the universe of Indiana Jones, God, I don't know. Yeah, like, you've got the temptation, so you got to fight the temptation to not look in the Ark, and then you got to fight the temptation to not use the power of the Ark to literally reshape the world. So that's I mean, that's a lot of power to entrust to someone, and unless God is calling you to take up the Ark of the Covenant, I don't know that you should be messing with it necessarily. And then, and like, same thing really with the Holy Grail. You can't die, right? It's literally the cup of eternal life. It's literally the cup. You guys hear that dog?
Dog.
Uh-oh. Hubby went after it. But so Holy Grail, you live forever, and so you can't cross the seal, because remember, like, the seal cracks and they fall down into it. And so I don't think the Holy Grail would have ever actually let you leave the temple. I don't think it would. So yeah, I will take away the knight's burden, and I shall take up that cross for him. Do we get DoorDash if we choose the Grail? I don't know. It is the modern world. They probably would DoorDash there. Conquering the world. Listen, Sultan. You can't. No. Sultan's over here like, he's ready. He is ready. Listen, Trivelangelo. Get out of here with that. Get out of here with that. Ain't nobody got time for that. It's Crystal Skull. Holy Grail, but I wouldn't use it. I don't want to live forever. Who wants to live forever? Right? A lot of people actually think they want to live forever. Too many people fear death. Way too many people fear death. It's coming for us all. So, live this life. Be strong, be courageous, and all that jazz. And really just, when death comes, embrace him as an old friend. That is, I had a sergeant tell me that repeatedly when I was a Lance, and it helped a lot, for sure. Yes, we do need more movies with the Mummy. Absolutely. Raiders, Crusade, the Lethal Weapon films. Oh my gosh, yes. Die Hard films, all of them, all 6 of them. Yes, I said it. I mean it. For 100%, yes. The Mummy, absolutely. And Raiders is a great place to start. Like, if anybody in Hollywood were to ever listen to this and they're like, what's one film that I should watch? Or what's one series of films that I should watch to learn how to um, you know, get the cinematography and the storytelling and everything like that down. What should I watch? I would tell them the Indiana Jones trilogy. Go watch that. Indiana Jones trilogy. And then you've got Die Hard, you've got Lethal Weapon, you've got the Die Hard series, you've got the Lethal Weapon series, you've got The Mummy and The Mummy Returns, and those are the only two that exist. Period. Um, read too many stories related to Sound of Freedom to turn down the Ark. Fair, Olivian. Fair. Legend of Zorro, another great one. National Treasure was really good. It was definitely, we were definitely heralding back to the era of the Raiders of the Lost Ark, The Last Crusade, the adventure action film. Okay, Mystic Girl, I would love to get more movies like Lord of the Rings, but it will, like the Lord of the Rings, see where we could possibly get something that maybe doesn't beat Raiders of the Lost Ark or Crusade, but it could at least stand toe to toe with them. As that's possible. Sorry, we're having storms, and so all the animals are losing their mind, and I can't put them outside because we're having storms. 1 second. Ta-da! And I'm back. Sorry about that. I will be sure to clip it. D-Day Direwolf, yo, what's going up? But back to Mystic Girl. As much as I would love for more Lord of the Rings films, like every single one to be of that caliber, of that storytelling, of that gravitas, and I have my issues with the Lord of the Rings trilogy, right? Like Glorfindel not being in there was a huge one. We've got the Tom Bombadil situation. My biggest one, if you guys have been around the channel at all for very long, you know that one of my biggest pet peeves was the way that they handled like time compression. So after Gandalf gives Frodo the ring, obviously 20 years is supposed to pass. And in the film, it feels more like 2 to 3 weeks, which it really, that time compression really bothers me because people don't realize that even though Frodo was not tempted by the ring because he left it, he forgot about it, he never touched it, right? But 20 years that ring had been able to slowly influence him. And so people are like, well, how come it did that to Frodo and not to Sam? Well, Frodo carried it the whole time, but it also was in his possession for 20 years. And up until Sam had to take it for that brief moment in time, so Sam was technically a ring bearer too. You got to think that's 22 years that ring was weighing on Frodo. That's a long time. Not to mention the time he was around it when Bilbo had it, right? So there's all those things to kind of consider, but we will never get anything close to the Lord of the Rings trilogy ever again. That is like, if you told me I had to choose one film, because I do look at that trilogy as one film. If I had to choose one S tier, everything else was below, I could only have one S tier IP, it would be the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Okay? And nothing will ever come close. Where Raiders, Crusade, The Mummy, Demolition Man, High Road to China, James, but like all of these are A tier IPs and A tier properties. And we could see something like that again. We could get a revival to films like that again if people would just, if people in Hollywood would just, pull their heads out of their rears. That would be great. So as much as I would love to root for Lord of the Rings-esque everything, I recognize how much of a lightning in the bottle miracle godsend that trilogy is. Because if it happened any earlier, there would have been issues with the effects, there would have been issues with sound mixing, there would have been issues with the casting, and if it had happened any later, it would have been made for modern audience, Rings of Power perversion type stuff. So it literally just it slid right into this perfect, almost like bubble, that it was able to utilize all of this new technology coming out while still focusing on practical effects. And it missed out on all of the girl bossing, modern audience messaging stuff. It literally, it walked that very fine line. So, but we got, and as you know, I'm a prequel trilogy stan. So we got the prequel trilogy. We didn't have the girl bossing, all men bad, excuse me, all men bad messaging in that. We started the Harry Potter series. I know that took, gosh, what was that? 2009, 2010 was when the last one came out. So you've got all of these, you had this, I would say from like 95 to 05, maybe 09. You had like this decade bubble of new technology being blended with practical effects and amplifying and bringing both of them up to a higher level, right? And we still had grounded, engaging, hopeful, just plot-driven, well-written storytelling, right? So that if we can just, we got to find that razor's edge again, because it is possible. It absolutely is possible, but people are just not wanting to do it, and I don't know why. Because if you go back and watch Raiders, I mean, some of those scenes are still iconic. The music is iconic. Indiana Jones is iconic. Miriam is iconic. The whole thing, everything. The medallion, the map room, the snake pit where the ark was actually hidden, and you have the snakes. Why did it have to be snakes? Like there's so much nostalgia and iconicism that comes from that film alone. It literally laid the groundwork for so many other IPs to jump off of and to be inspired by. I mean, there are people, they admit that without Indiana Jones, or without, because we talk about the Lord of the Rings books. It is literally a foundational of fantasy story. It is the grandfather of modern fantasy and modern writing. It is the pinnacle. Just like the trilogy that is based off of it is the pinnacle for film, the books themselves are the pinnacle for storytelling and writing. And I would fight anybody for that. If I had to choose an S tier story in fiction, it would be Lord of the Rings. If everything else had to be A tier or lower and I could only have one S tier, it would be Lord of the Rings. It would. So, and I would fight anybody on that. Yes, the Wheel of Time is amazing, but Jordan took 14 bricks, and he sadly, of course, passed away, and Sanderson, who did wonderful finishing it up, Tolkien was able to do in 3. And I am really sick of everybody just be like, well, this and that, and allegorically, and it's like, no. And J.K. Rowling has admitted that so if you think about it, without Lord of the Rings, we don't have Harry Potter. Without Lord of the Rings, we don't have the Chronicles of Narnia or the Space Trilogy, both by C.S. Lewis, and I highly recommend the Space Trilogy. Without Lord of the Rings, we don't have Star Wars, the book, right? Remember, because George Lucas said that he read The Lord of the Rings and he was really inspired by him. I gotta find that interview. But we likely don't have, maybe we have Star Wars, but it likely would look very different. Without Lord of the Rings, we don't have The Mummy, we don't have Jumanji, we don't have so many stories people don't even realize. We don't have For those of you that are Game of Thrones fans, I am not one of you. For Song of Ice and Fire, we don't have the Song of Ice and Fire series, which means you don't get the Game of Thrones television show, which means you don't have the House of the Dragon show that's about to drop. So all of these things, if you link them back, it all starts with that foundation of Lord of the Rings. So if you said, Lady G, you have to pick one S tier IP property and everything else is A or lower in fiction, I gotta go both book and film. It is Lord of the Rings. Absolutely 100%. Raiders and Crusade are like right there next to it. They're so close. Like they are like A++. It's they are incredible. And I really think that when it comes to especially Raiders of the Lost Ark, because this is Nostalgic Nirvana about Raiders, when it comes to Raiders of the Lost Ark, I think something that people really overlook is this film took on a very sensitive topic for a lot of people during a time in America when, I mean, think about when this came out. This came out in 81. So we're talking just survived Vietnam and Korea, both abroad and at home. Remember, people were not supportive of troops, even though Vietnam and Korea were draft wars. Okay. They were drafted wars. Those soldiers got spat on, insulted, belittled, degraded, demeaned. Some people, they were kicked out of their homes or their apartments. Their families abandoned them. Their wives left. Like, it was bad, guys. And we're talking about the Cold War at this point. Okay. And it's just, it's wild when you think about the time in history that we were facing when this was made. And so to take something that everybody could agree on, because remember, this was before everybody used Nazis as a scapegoat for allegory. In this film, they are actual just Nazis. Can I say that on YouTube? I'm not sure. I might have to clip that. Yahtzees. The bad guys from Germany in World War II. So when you think about all of what was going on and everything that was happening, this was actually a gutsy move, but it was so well received and it was so incredible and people loved Harrison Ford and it skyrocketed him, right? You already had Han Solo, which people were in love with. And you've got Indiana Jones now. And so this really just cemented him in Hollywood stardom and fame, and it just propelled him, and he did so many fantastic works after this. And then of course, you find out that he's there's a reason why his publicist didn't let him talk and didn't let him do interviews. But that just goes to show how good of an actor he is. So in this film, the masculine, like when I rewatched it, guys, I was just like, oh my God, my kingdom for a masculine story like this again. My kingdom for a masculine lead. And sadly, that is not the case as of yet, but I'm hoping that we are going to see that turn around sometime soon. Hello, Father Miller. Howdy ho. So it's just wild to me when people are like, oh, that old film. And I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm like, first of all, the film industry itself is only like, it's just now knocking on like 110 years, right? So when you put that into context and the fact of where it started too, these films are they're not that old. We're only talking, we're only halfway through Americana film history, really. When I was taking my film critics class, so when I was in high school, I really wanted to like do a lot of stuff. But because I was poor growing up, I could not really go places. And that's why I was huge on going to my library and checking out books so that I could escape to these other worlds and travel vicariously that way. And then I would check out books on ancient Rome and ancient Egypt and ancient Greece, ancient Japan, like just these ancient worlds. And I would sort of travel through them, and then I would compare them to like modern day, what they were. This is back in the 90s and early 2000s, because oh god, I was young. And so I would browse through them, and as you're like looking and you're realizing just how much there is out there, and you appreciate what you have, because some of these countries were not doing really well, some of them were doing okay. But then I would look around at what I had, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I have rolling hills, I have fields of wheat and grain and sunflowers, and there's waterfalls, there's mountains, quote unquote mountains, that I can hike and climb, I can bike, I can fish, I can swim. Like I have all of these things. I was like, it's pretty amazing what I have at my disposal. And so it just made me appreciate what I had more. And then when you watch something like Raiders of the Lost Ark, my idea of like my future husband, or like a masculine man, was very much shaped by my dad, my grandpa, my uncles, some of my older cousins. So I have 22 first cousins, or I should say it like this. I am one of 25. Yes, 25. I had to count. One of 25 first cousins. And so I have a lot of cousins, and a lot of them are older than me. I sort of fall at the middle younger end. And so when like I would watch them, and so I'd be like 6 and they're like 16, and I'm like, show me how to drive, show me how to do this, like I want to watch you like harvest, or I want to watch you fix stuff, or I want to help you fix the car engine or whatever. And so like I was always tagging along and looking, and it was like that with pretty much all of my girl cousins too. We wanted to be helpful, so we learned basic mechanics and like basic electric and like just the very basic, like how to be safe, what to look for, and call the electrician, call the actual electrician, don't try to fix it yourself. It's amazing how many people don't follow that advice. And but then of course, I also learned how to plant gardens and harvest gardens and cook in the kitchen and pickle or jar or can, whatever you want to call it. Just all kinds of really great stuff, like knowledge that is invaluable, that I never I took for granted way too often. And now that I have to lean on it, I'm so thankful that I have it. And so that's sort of like what my worldview was shaped. But my mom is a big nerd, and there's a reason that I love like 70s and 80s hair bands and metal and rock. I love me some country. I really do. But when I say country, I'm talking like Johnny Cash and Clint Black. And there is nothing wrong with Toby Keith or Luke Bryan. There's not. But I'm really, my grandpa loves polka music, so I grew up listening to a lot of polka. I also learned how to play the accordion, because my grandpa plays the accordion and the banjo. And so it's just wild, the stuff you pick up. And I remember watching The Goonies. And do you guys remember the scene where they have to play the piano? I will never forget, after my grandpa taught me what scales were, that scene came on, and I was like, I know those notes. I know that. I was like, that's not a scale. And my grandpa was like so proud. But my mom was like, well, if you like the Goonies, because even when I was little, I loved stuff like The Sandlot and the Goonies, like stuff that preps you for Indiana Jones. So my mom, when she sat me down for Indiana Jones, I had just watched Star Wars, and then she sat me down for Indiana Jones, and that's when I I realized that I have a crush on Harrison Ford. I didn't realize even then, by the time I saw those movies, this came out in 81. So by the time I saw it, this movie would have been uh 15, 16 years old by the time I saw it. Um, and I had not realized that. And so I was just like, oh, I'm going to grow up and I'm going to marry Indiana Jones. I'm going to marry Han Solo. I very much like Zorro, Han Solo, Indiana Jones, Rick from The Mummy. I very much have a type. I found that out too. I was like, I guess I have a type. And my mom, she would always laugh, but my sisters are very much the like rom-com drama type, and I love adventure action fantasy films. Like, this is my niche. I love it so much. The westerns, fantasy, action, adventure. If we could roll all that up into one, which is probably why I love The Mummy so much, because it has elements of a western, elements of fantasy, elements of action. There's horror in there, which I usually don't go for, but it was handled really well in there. There's a horror in Raiders of the Lost Ark too. So when you look at Raiders, that's another thing. Raiders and Crusade both have elements of western. They both have elements of fantasy, not in terms of like a magic system, but that there is like a fantastical other world, other power out there. You've got the action, you've got the adventure, have the love interest, but it's not like super overdone. It's more of a subplot. It's fantastic. It took me years to figure out the joke in Crusade when when Indy asks his dad was like, "How did you know she was a Nazi?" He goes, "Huh? Oh, sorry, bad guy from World War II." And then he's like, "How did you know?" And then he's like, talks in her sleep. Like, I never understood that joke until I was much, much older. And my mom, once I got it, she laughed. And I was like, "Oh, she's a bad lady." And my mom's like, "Yes, obviously." So I credit my mom with a lot of that. And my dad was he was always so it was always so supportive and funny, because he would he knew that romance wasn't my thing. So he would purposefully like put in like VHS tapes like Titanic or something like that. And he would wait for me to like walk in, and he'd press play and he'd be like, "Oh, don't look, don't look." And I'd be like, "Dad." And he's like, "Oh, they're smooching." Like, he would just torture me with it. But he loves westerns with me. He and I'll sit down and watch a western with my grandpa, and it's fantastic. And so when you watch Raiders of the Lost Ark and you get all these different elements that are incorporated in this fantastic story, it's so easy to get lost in it and to just truly enjoy yourself. And that's something that we have been missing for so long. And I really do think that if we ever got, and I'm going to be very clear on this. I am not talking about a reboot, a remake, a reimagining. That is not what I am talking about. I am talking about if we could get a film in the same vein as Raiders of the Lost Ark, the Last Crusade, The Mummy, even some of the 007 back in like the Pierce Brosnan and prior era, but especially like GoldenEye, guys. There's so I love a lot of James Bond films, but I'm gonna tell you right now, GoldenEye is peak James Bond for me. I love Dr. No, From Russia with Love, Diamonds Are Forever. I mean, how could you? Diamonds are forever. Freaking the James Bond title songs. They used to be so good. So good. I know everybody likes Skyfall, but every time I listen to Skyfall, it almost sounds like Adele listened to Diamonds Are Forever and then just sort of took it and mutated it through like a mixer or an AI machine, spat it out, and then changed a little bit. I'm sorry. It's not bad by any means. It's definitely the best of of that era of James Bond, but it's I mean, when you've got gold, think of the intro. I think that's probably gonna be our next nostalgic Nirvana. It's just gonna be James Bond intros. I can't go down that rabbit hole right now, guys. I'm gonna stop, or I'll never stop. You know it. I know it. Everybody knows it. And we're here for Raiders. I gotta stay on Raiders. I can't rabbit hole. We're not gonna do it. I promise. I'm gonna try and stay on target. But it's just it's so wonderful that we have all of these things that we can still enjoy. And so when people are like, oh well, too bad, like, you have, like, no, I don't have to put up with anything. I have got decades and decades and decades of fantastic storytelling, and it's not even close. And some of the modern stuff that's coming out, the Fall Guy, I just did a video, it dropped this morning, and it's about just, box office wariness and why. So there's actually 4 films that are worth going and seeing in cinema. You've got the family films, If and the Garfield movie, and then you've got the 2 like action summer starters. You've got Furiosa, Mad Max Saga, and then you have the Fall Guy. And I cannot praise the Fall Guy enough. It is so worth it. It really is. It's worth the time. It's worth the money. And just to see, like I said, the boat chase scene on the big screen, it's wonderful. It is very much, the Fall Guy is very much a harken. I really felt like I was pulled back to the mid 2000s. That's where I felt like I was, because it was funny, it was witty, it was smart, it was down to earth. It had characters you wanted to root for. There was no girl bossing. There was no, like, at no point did you disbelieve this was possible. And even like the plot twists that you sort of suspected, the way that they delivered them, you were just like, dude, like, that hurts me. It was just fantastic. Can't praise the Fall Guy enough. I really do. You have the time and the money and the gumption, go check it out. It's definitely worth it. But it's not Raiders, I'll be honest, but it had that. It's very much in the right. It's a definite course correction. It's in a, I would say it's a solid B+ movie for sure. And it harkens back to those times when we could just have fun. And while I was watching Raiders, you know how you watch movies and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so great. Like, I love what I'm watching. I love what I'm seeing. This is so, like, it's going to end way too soon. Like, this can't. Do you realize Raiders of the Lost Ark is a 2-hour movie? It's an hour and 55 minutes, but I'm gonna round up. 2 hours. At no point did I ever feel that runtime. At no point was I like, oh my God, 2 hours, it's too long. Like, when it was over, I was like, dude, that's not enough time. Like, there's so much more I want to investigate, and there's so much more that I want to watch and see, and I want to follow Indy and Miriam, and I want more of their story. Like, 2 hours was not enough time. And I miss when movies were like that, where they were still intelligent. They didn't Raiders definitely does not treat the audience like they're stupid. You have to have some type of common sense to be able to actually understand and track what this movie is about, and the plot and the story. You've got to have some level of critical thinking skills, right? And I don't think, like, at no point was I ever insulted or felt talked down to or belittled or demeaned And it was so great watching Indiana Jones rely on his skills, his brain, and his brawn. Like, yes, this guy can punch and he throws elbows and he's capable and can handle himself. Um, but he's also incredibly intelligent and he's solving problems at a rate that is faster than the bad guys can put obstacles up in front of him. And that scene when he runs in and, like, well, doesn't run in, but he ducks into the tent to avoid the bad guys from World War II who are patrolling the area, and he sees Miriam tied to the, like, and he just, like, he's overcome with, like, emotion and joy and grit. Like, he just couldn't believe she was alive, and he was about to cut her loose. And even in, like, his state of ecstasy and joy, right? He stopped and was like, I can't cut you loose. Back for you, but they can't know we're here. And if I cut you loose, they're going to know. And so, even though he's excited to see her, he can see that she's safe. He can see that, she's tied up, but she's obviously been treated very well and she's being taken care of. She's not being neglected, abused, or, like, I'm sure if he walked into that tent and she was, like, bloody and covered in wounds and scrapes and her clothes were tore up, he wouldn't have thought twice. He would have, like, he would have been like, screw the Ark, let's go, I'm getting her out of here, we'll come back for it another time, they don't know where it's at anyway, right? He would have, I'm sure he would have done that. But in that moment of excitement, he was like, no, Miriam, like, you need to stay. And so the fact that he was able to do that really shows his masculinity and his capability and his forethinking, right? Because all she's thinking about is, get me out of here, take me with you, like, I'll go with you. And he's like, we can't, because they'll know, and I need time, right? And so the fact that he was able to carry on with the bigger mission after that speaks volumes. You don't get that today. We have a bunch of simp boys on the screen who would have immediately cut Miriam loose and blown the entire operation, and who knows how many lives would have been lost, and the Ark would have fallen into the hands of the bad guys from World War II much sooner, and would have likely not melted everybody's face off. Just saying. But it's just the fact that he is able to stay calm, stay rational, think on his feet, and overcome these evils and these obstacles. And we don't get a character with, like, we haven't gotten an Indiana Jones character in a long time. We haven't gotten a Rick O'Connell in a long time. Like, I know that a lot of people are talking about, like, Nathan Drake and I don't have a personal problem with Tom Holland, but he isn't Nathan Drake. And I guess there was such a misfire for me. I really I only know him, like, I know him as Marky Mark, and I can't think of his real name. I can't Mark Wahlberg, there we go. Like, I think Mark Wahlberg would have been a much better Nathan Drake. Everybody's like, oh, he was too old. And I'm like, I still think he would have been a better Nathan Drake by a long shot. But I can't understand the Tom Holland leading man thing as of yet. I think he can grow into being someone with that gravitas and those chops and that capability. But at least in that Uncharted film, it didn't it did not come across as that. He came across very much as a sort of like a co-pilot to his own adventure. He was just sort of tagging along with everybody else. And he got outsmarted by a lot of people. And it wasn't like betrayal. It was flat out he got outsmarted. And so when you look at like Indiana Jones, when he gets betrayed, it's a genuine like blow, right? He does not see it coming because this is someone that he is entrusted and he's believed in, and so when that betrayal comes, it wasn't that he got fooled. It's that he was so sure, like at the very beginning, right? We know he doesn't trust the guys that he's with. He hears the gun cock, and so he pulls out his whip and he lashes it out of the guy's hand, right? And the guy takes off, and you get that review. God, that's got to be one of the greatest character reveals in cinema history. Like that, literally nothing can compare. It's hold on, we're gonna watch it really quick because it's just so dang good, and I'm gonna get hit for it. I know I'm gonna get hit for it, and I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. If you're watching this on the replay, you just won't get to see it, but you can go watch it. You can go and watch it on your own, and I highly recommend everybody just go and enjoy this fantastic, wonderful, amazing, incredible film that we don't get any more of today. So let's get this, make sure I don't boomer this, and share audio. Okay, here we go. Na 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 na. Ta-da! Do this. All right. Let me know if you guys can hear it, okay? And that's best character intro pretty much almost ever. It's so good. It's so good. It cannot be denied. Cannot be denied. That is so good. And also, for a long time, I thought that sound was that was the gun firing. That was his whip cracking. That was the sonic boom from the tip of his whip, breaking the sound barrier. That's what that was. And it's just, oh my gosh, so good. Yes, fedoras became infinitely cool in that moment. 100%. I am down for this. Nathan Fillion is Nathan Drake. Absolutely. 100%. I would love that so much. He's such a good actor. I love Castle. I love The Rookie. I love Firefly, even though it got cut short. And yes, we got Serenity, but like, Firefly was so good. It was so good. Yes, that was a real man right there. Just decisive, didn't beg, didn't plead, didn't try and negotiate, didn't talk about feelings and how do you feel and why are you doing this? No, just straight up, he heard that revolver, he heard that hammer, and he flat out, he's like, psh. I mean, you can't ask for more. You can't ask for more, right? He's been in shadow for the first like 3 minutes as the title credits are playing, and you're like, God, what's going on? And he grabs, he pulls the poison dart out of the tree and he drops it on the ground, and they're like, oh my gosh, it's poison. Like he could tell, and they were like, oh. And so from just the very intro, you understand that this man is capable. He's well studied. He knows what he's doing. He's just a badass. And we don't get that anymore. And it breaks my soul that we don't get that level of iconicism anymore. Like, here, we'll roll through some clips that I did for the intro. They're gonna be the outro too, but like, just look at some of these. These are just some, because I tried to keep it at a minute, and so I was like, oh my God, I have to cut out so much. but like just take a look. Look at this. Ugh, we don't get those anymore. Yes, the music was perfect. So this is the thing too. If you go back and you watch the Indiana Jones films, even Temple, if you watch the Indiana Jones trilogy, the music is a character, right? The music is a character. Just like if you go back and you watch Batman 89 and Batman Returns, even like people don't give it enough credit, but Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, when I say this, I'm pretty sure, chat, you will agree with me. Gotham City was a character in those movies. It was just like in the comic books. Gotham City is a character. It's not just a setting. It is literally, like they even say, this city will chew you up and spit you out, right? And so it was it was a literal character of the story. The music in the Indiana Jones trilogy, in the Star Wars trilogy, both the OG and the PT, the prequels, that I mean, the music is a character. Lord of the Rings, the music is a character. It pulls you in. It is so incredibly immersive. And if you go back and you watch something like Jaws, you're just like, God, this music is perfect. There we go. When was the last time you watched a film and you were like, that score is so good, but it was just it pulled me in. I loved every second of it. I can't put into words how incredible that score was. When was the last time? When? Because I'm gonna tell you right now, Avengers did not do it. Everybody wants, the Avengers, the event. No. Like, you recognize the music because you've heard it so much. But when was the last time you watched a film and you were like, oh my God, this is a perfect score? And no, I don't mean like on a test sheet. I mean the music, obviously. The Batman? No. On Livian, I'm going to disagree with you 100%. I hated everything about the Batman. I still have a review that I never released that maybe I should release. It was like, I hated that movie so much for so many reasons. And the score was, I think I said the score was okay. It was probably the best part of the movie, but it was definitely not fantastic. Yes, Harry Potter. But again, okay, let me look. When did the Harry Potter Deathly Hallows come out? La 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 la. We're looking. Da 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 da. 2011, girl. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 came out in 2011. It is 2024. It's been 13 years, girl. 13 years. 13. I need you to, like, honestly think about that. Some of these films, that's the thing. A lot of these films are so good that we feel like and we're like, they were such a big part of the culture and our lives. and you were like they feel like they just came out yesterday. Hell, I still feel that way about the Indiana Jones trilogy, about the Mummy came out in like 99, right? So it's you're sitting there and you're like, oh, it wasn't that long ago. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 came out in 2011. We are talking 13 years. You were born in 89. It's a great year. It's a great year. You're not old. You're not old. But the thing is, the way that we consume entertainment has changed, and the way that media is made has changed. And so a lot of the stuff that is timeless, it's genuinely timeless, and it's easy to forget when it actually came out because it feels so much more recent, especially because The Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, these things were huge cultural phenomenons that are still affecting not just pop culture, but culture in general today still. I mean, A Troubled Green, if you don't follow her she's got a channel here on YouTube and she's over on Twitter. Amazing woman, beautiful soul, incredibly intelligent. She's about to decorate her baby nursery in Shire theme and Rohan theme. Like that is how relevant that still is. And so when people fail to recognize just how much, it's like, oh, well, we have these greats. Okay, but we haven't had a great, like a genuine great film in a long, long time. And I am not kidding. Inception was 2010, Trivangelo. I remember that one. I do. That was 2010. I know that one for a fact. Hello, Miss Martin Muses. Mwah, Miss Martin Muses. If you don't follow her, you should, because she's amazing. You're probably not old, Soul Assassin. It's just time is fluid. Like it really is. So it's stuff that feels like it happened yesterday may have happened 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And stuff that happened at like my mom actually, she was talking about how when you're raising kids, she's like, the days are long, but the years are short. And you're like, I don't even know what does that even mean? It goes by so fast. Like, yes, you have sleepless nights, and yes, you're exhausted, and you get puked on and pooped on and all of these other things. But you only have like a very limited window to make memories and to like help your child improve and to be the best version of themselves. And so that is very similar to just life in general. Life, like you might have long days and you might have short days, but like the years are definitely short. There's a country song, it's called Don't Blink, and it's literally like you go from being 5 to being 20 to being 35, and now suddenly you're 60, and like, where did the time go? And you're like, oh, I've got time. And most people waste it. Most people don't do the thing. They don't go see the family member. They don't go learn the language. They don't go visit the country. They don't eat the food, right? And instead they fill themselves up with things that are not fulfilling. And so they can't figure out why they feel empty. And that's a lot of what we're seeing in, entertainment today, is we're getting a lot of hollow, nutrition lacking for there's no meat and potatoes anymore. We're getting fed a lot of sugar heavy foods. Like, oh, it's so pretty to look at. Okay, yeah, but the story sucks. Like, I don't care how pretty it looks. I would much rather give a low budget movie that can't really necessarily afford all the fancy special effects a chance if it has a good story over these modern films that are all flash and smoke screens, but with no heart, with no soul, with no spine, with no story. Like, I don't want to just stare at the screen and essentially have the equivalent of a magician going abracadabra. And we can't even have pretty people on screen anymore. We have to. I'm making a video about this, but I'm calling it the Hollywood's potato bag protocol. It's where they take beautiful women and handsome men, but mostly beautiful women, and they potato bag them. You know that. So, there's a scene, and I'm still trying to find it, but I remember this scene because I was watching Days of Our Lives with my grandma, and I was sitting in her living room on the floor on that nasty 70s brown oh gosh, what's the word? Not fluffy. Shag carpet. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. Anybody that was born from 95 like or younger, somewhere between the 70s to 95, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's that nasty orange brown shag carpet, and she had the yellow plastic cushion couch with like the dollies over them, and then she had that one, it was like the yellow color, and then she had the wood frame orange brown cushion couch, that where the cushions could get pulled off and the color matched the carpet. She had that couch too, and I remember I was sitting on the floor because my grandpa was sitting on the cushion couch, on the brown couch, and my grandma was on the yellow couch because that's where she did her crafts and like her knitting and stuff. That's where she put everything down. And then so we were sitting there, and it was the Days of Our Lives scene had come on, and I just remember her name was Hope, and the older lady was looking at her, and she was like, "You've been waiting for this for a really long time." And she's like, "And it doesn't matter what you walk down that aisle in. You could walk down the aisle in a potato bag and you'd still be beautiful." Someone took that line and they took it too far in Hollywood, because if you look at any of the Indiana Jones women, whether it's Raiders, Temple, or Crusade, they're all gorgeous. They're all beautiful. Women used to be attractive in films. Women used to be allowed to be pretty. I don't understand why we can't have beautiful women be beautiful. I don't understand what the obsession in Hollywood... Oops. See, I'm getting so mad. I'm throwing pens. I don't understand what the obsession in Hollywood is with making them unattractive. Like, or excuse me, she wasn't like a supermodel, but she was beautiful and she was capable and she was intelligent and she had like this fiery spirit, right? And that was part of her appeal. But she wasn't an outright feminist witch with a B. You know what I mean? I miss that. I miss it so much. So it was better than the green or orange short carpet. I don't know. That shag carpet was pretty terrible. I'm not gonna lie. It was, man alive. I just don't understand. And it was someone somewhere has to grow a pair and just start making good movies. They just have to be like, we don't need, you know what, BlackRock, we don't need your money. We survived off the customer before. We're gonna survive off of them again. Like, if you build it, they will come. Field of Dreams, another great movie. But if they make good movies, we will show up. Well, I used to say that, but I don't know. After 7 years of, actually, it's been closer to a decade, if not more. Like 2010 is really when you first saw those art. So it's been 15 years of steadily getting more and more and more abusive and like directly confrontational with the paying customer from the mainstream media and even from like studios. I mean, Kathleen Kennedy literally just did an interview today. That interview dropped. As she is in charge of Lucasfilm, this same studio that holds this IP of Indiana Jones. She just came out and was like, I'm aware of this and we know that it's going on. And there was a percentage of the population that reacted in a very predictable way, like just absolutely insulting And I'm just over it. I'm completely over it. Someone just needs to Elon Musk, I make this business pitch to you. If you want, I can put together a business plan for you and bring it to you formally. But if you could give me just a small, like, give me one chance, one shot to make a film, just one shot to make a film, I promise you two things. One, I won't take a salary until that film is profitable. And two, I will do everything in my power to make it the most fun you've had at the cinema since Lord of the Rings. Because quite frankly, since Lord of the Rings, I mean, you could say Pirates of the Caribbean, but after that whole nonsense, let's see, when did the last Pirates film come out? Let me see. Na 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 na. Pirates of Penzance. That's a good one. That is let's see. So Black Pearl came out in 2003. Dead Man's Chest came out in 2006. World's End was 2007. Stranger Tide was 2011. So the last Pirates film, which was Dead Men Tell No Tales, came out in 2017. And that was the one with the two young kids. And I saw her ankles, like that whole joke of a thing. Okay, so 2017. So we're talking, it's been 7 years since the last Pirates of the Caribbean film. And to be perfectly honest, Curse of the Black Pearl was by far the best. Like continuity wise, storytelling wise, all of it. But I can promise you that this would be the most fun you've had in the cinema in over a decade, since 2014 at the very least. And we wouldn't be looking for messaging of either side. Like, we're not looking for messaging. We're not looking for making a political statement. Simply telling a good, fun, exciting story that has a moral, because we want to take something away from it. You know, whether that's good triumphing over evil, whether that's the hero's sacrifice, the hero's journey, overcoming different personal and larger obstacles, recognizing that you are capable of more than you thought, denying temptation, maybe a mixture of any of those, like just old-fashioned values, old-fashioned morals, good storytelling, and fun. Like, fun. Remember, cinema was fun? Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, fun. So there we go. Not that Elon Musk is ever going to see this, but there's my pitch. And I'm flabbergasted that the independent sphere has not taken off more rapidly, because what we're getting out of Hollywood is at best a joke, and at worst it is IP legacy destroying propaganda for elites that do not care about the common man. So it's just, I miss when movies were fun. I miss when they were inspiring and uplifting, and they told stories of not just what we as humans are, but what we could maybe aspire to be, and that we can transcend the superficial barriers of, race, religion, personal beliefs, and just really touch on the human experience. That's something else that Raiders did. It's a film for anyone. Now, there is no film for everyone. You'd never be able to make a film for everyone. And I think that's Hollywood's biggest problem right now, is that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make a film for everyone, when what they should be trying to do is make a film for anyone. And that's what Raiders is. Anybody can watch Raiders of the Lost Ark. Anybody. And they can take whatever morality, messaging, inspiration that they want from it. That's the beauty of these stories. They didn't tell you how to think or what to think. They presented you with the story, and you were able to decide for yourself what the best parts of it were, what the parts worth remembering are, what were the iconic moments for you. And that is truly empowering your audience when you give them your story in such a way that they are able to take it and run with it. And so it's just amazing what used to be accomplished. And I think that's something that gets criminally overlooked lately. So out of Raiders of the Lost Ark, we were able to find so many, like there's so many relevant, and I really dislike to use that word nowadays, but just timeless scenes, timeless storytelling, and just iconic moments that have thrived throughout the decades of storytelling. And so when people ask, like, what makes I think the word instant classic, the phrase instant classic, gets thrown around far too much. Not everything is an instant classic. It doesn't matter who's writing it or who is in it. Each story has to stand on its own merits. And when you reject that notion, when you think that you are entitled to more because, oh, well, look at everything that I've done. Okay, but that has no bearing on what you are currently doing. Especially of late, people no longer hold over goodwill when it comes to things. Every time we have done that, we've gotten slapped in the face. And now Hollywood is finding out what happens when you run out of that goodwill. It happened to, excuse me, it happened to this IP. I mean, Dial of Destiny was a glorious train wreck of a flop. But then you come back to Raiders of the Lost Ark and you're like, is this really the same IP? They're totally outside of the name. They're not related. It's just they're virtually unrecognizable. And to see what we had and what we could have if these executives would simply like eat some humble pie and actually make films for fans instead of themselves or their investment DEI dollars. It hurts all the more. And so to recognize that a lot of stuff had to get destroyed in the fight. We're winning. We are winning, but we lost a lot along the way. And that is a travesty. Luckily, I mean, make sure you have your physical media because they will try to change things. They already tried to change the Greedo and Han Solo scene in Star Wars, and they're trying to gaslight people, and that's not how it happened. Han didn't shoot first. Han was the only one that shot. Period. End of discussion. So I definitely, guys, I cannot say this enough. If you have never seen, or it's been a while, or you just watched Raiders of the Lost Ark, definitely go give it a look-see. Go give it a watch. It's 2 hours and you do not feel it. It does not feel like a 2-hour runtime. As you guys know, with Nostalgic Nirvana, I try really hard to keep it between an hour and 15 and an hour and 30 minutes. I don't really want to go over that. And I'm going to stick to that. And so we are creeping up on the hour 30 mark. So for everybody that is here, I greatly, genuinely appreciate you. Thanks, Satika. I'll get right on it. So I genuinely appreciate every single one of you. And you guys are awesome. Never forget that. And the fact that you're willing to spend any amount of your time with me is truly humbling, and I absolutely appreciate you guys. I cannot put into words how much I appreciate you guys. And just this fellowship in general. You guys are amazing. You're fantastic. And I love being able to get to chat with you guys about movies that, you know, are incredible, and books that are amazing, and music that has changed the world. And speaking of books, next Saturday for members we're Pages for Ages book club is back, and we are reading the first Redwall. So make sure you give that a look. And if you're not a member, you can sign up, and you can join us for the book club live streams. So while the live stream is active, it's members only, and then it'll go public after. And fellowship and grave master levels get to be on panel, and then the ocarina will be in the chat. So I greatly appreciate every single one of you. You're just fantastic. Thank you so much for everything. I dropped a video this morning. I hope you guys get a chance to look at that and you like that as well. And I have another vid in the works. I may be able to drop it tomorrow, but we will see. And outside of that, I just, much love. I appreciate you all. God bless, Godspeed, good night, and until next time.